Hi everyone, thanks for joining on. I'm excited to have Liz Foster joining me. Hi Liz.
How are you, Jackie, and everybody?
Good, thank you. Good to have you here talking to me. So just a little bit about Liz. Liz now lives in New South Wales, but grew up in England in a family obsessed with Scrabble, Boogle, crosswords, and books. When she's not writing, she's thinking about it, peppering her family with questions about plot and character dilemmas, listening to podcasts, reading out loud, and boring the dog senseless. The Good Woman's Guide to Making Better Choices is her first novel. And I've got my copy here as well, and I can see your one in the background. Love the cover. It's really a little bit different, the cover, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The colour really stands out,
Mm,
actually. So I think I got a lot of kudos over the holiday period because there were lots of dark memoirs, physically dark. I mean, like, crime memoirs and so on that were all sort of red and black covers. And the
mm,
yellow cover just looked lovely on the shelf next
mm.
to them.
Yeah, no, it certainly stands out. And just wanted to mention to people watching as well that thanks to a firm press, if you ask a question during the Facebook Live, you'll have a chance to win your own copy of The Good Woman's Guide to Making Better Choices. So please type your questions out for Liz. But just wondering, Liz, do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about The Good Woman's Guide to Making Better Choices?
Or so the book, as the title implies, is mainly about a woman, a good woman. She's called Libby, and she is a country girl from northeast Victoria who married Ludo, who's sort of made it big and built this glitzy penthouse in Bondi. And they live there with their two children. And life's pretty good. She misses the farm, but, it's okay. Can't complain. She lives in this great spot. And then one day there's a knock at the door. It's the police, and they basically arrest him,
Mm.
and he gets carted off to jail. So the rest of the book is her, first of all, getting her head around it. Second of all, they lose everything. Third of all, how is she going to cope? They have to stay in Sydney because her son Harrison's finishing school. He's in the final year at the Conservatorium of Music. And she needs cash. So at the
Mm.
same time as all of that, she feels horribly complicit because she hosted the last dinner party which was a fundraising round, which of course she didn't know at the time.
Mm.
She's a graphic designer, so she'd done the design for the pitch. And also her brother is involved, which she subsequently finds out later. So as well as trying to hold the fort and work out which way's up with the husband, she has to somehow make amends to all these other people.
Mm. Mm.
She's a good woman.
Yeah, yeah. And could you tell us a bit about what the first idea was you had for this book?
The first idea, well, I think the very first one was in lockdown. Everyone did something in lockdown, the big
Mm.
lockdown in New South Wales, if anyone's moving in from Victoria, which seemed to be constant scrolling lockdowns, but the Sydney main one was 2021. And that was when the fraudster Melissa Caddick was all over the news. So um, the journos were on her at this point. It's basically a very elaborate Ponzi scheme she set up. She fleeced her family and friends. It was all her intimate confidants.
Mm.
And ultimately she met, an untimely death. But that was all kind of
Mm.
happening through the lockdown. So that happened as I was writing the book, to be honest. But I just remember thinking, God, those were her friends, that's her family, her
Yeah.
parents, her brother.
Mm.
She basically lied to them and took all
Mm.
their money and
Mm.
went off to, the first class jets all around the world. I mean, I just thought it was extraordinary. And her husband, who didn't really get great press, he's a hairdresser and he's her husband, and there's nothing wrong with either of those things. But at the end of the day, but why would he know?
Mm.
He thinks she's a high-flying financier,
Mm.
and he's not going to question where the money comes from.
Mm.
So it just made me think of what would you do if you found?
Yeah. Yeah, no, very true. And this is your first book. What could you tell us a little bit about your story to getting this published?
Yes, so it's my first publication, my
Mm.
debut publication, which is super exciting. Came out in January, really, this year. But it's the second novel that I've written. So the first novel was my cutting my teeth, if you like, and I spent a long time writing that and pitching that and going around in circles, and then eventually, when you don't get anywhere, you say, "Oh, well, I'll write another book," which is not as easy said as done, but I did, and that was this book. This was the lockdown book. And then I thought, well, I'm going to start to write a third book, and then I'll have 3 books to pitch. So I was basically halfway through writing the third book when I thought, well, I'll continue to pitch the second, which is this book. And I met my agent at a small writers' festival in Sydney in September 2022. And by January, she signed me up, and by March, a firm had offered me a contract. So it ended up being right place at the right time. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have got anywhere without my agent, that's for sure. And she did an amazing job, but it was just exactly what the publisher was looking for when the manuscript crossed her desk. And that's the final piece of luck that you need with any manuscript. You know, it doesn't matter how good it is. You know, and I look back on my first one, at the time I thought, oh, it mustn't be good enough. But now I think, no, I think it is good enough. I mean, it can be improved, but I think it's good enough. Definitely fixable, you know. So you spend a lot of time sort of doubting yourself, and you know, in the end, someone else says, well, actually it is good enough, and off you go.
And so your first book you wrote, is that something that you will go back and try and...
Yeah, so I'm editing it at the moment, actually. So it's fun because, of course, you know, it's been really 3-4 years, more than that, 5 years really, since I wrote it. But it's always obviously going to be very dear to my heart. It's the first thing I wrote and the first characters I made up, and going back to it now has been quite wonderful. But also, it's like revisiting stuff when you've had five years in the interim to think of new ideas, you know.
Excuse me.
Oh, bless you.
Excuse me.
No, you're fine. My husband has sneezing fits, like 50 sneezes. So yes, it's been quite lovely to go back to it and revisit all my characters, and then see new ways that they can come to life. So that is what I'm working on now, which is very, very exciting and very fun.
And are you able to tell us anything about what the next one's going to be like?
So it's about a family secret that unravels when a backpacker comes to stay.
Oh, okay.
It's set in an inner city suburb of Sydney, so the fictitious suburb of Romaine, which may or may not be an amalgam of the suburbs Rozelle and Balmain. But Romaine is fictitious. And it centres around a family scrapyard that is there. It's an original scrapyard from that suburb, and a backpacker turns up one day and stays with them. And the family, these sort of adult siblings, don't really know what to make of him, and why their father has engineered this backpacker to come and say they didn't know anything about him. And we subsequently learn that, you know, there's a lot more to him than meets the eye, as you would imagine, and all of the family dynamics start to come into play there.
No, that sounds very intriguing, and also sounds like you enjoy looking at the different relationships and friendships and families, and sounds like that's something that's common.
There's always something, isn't there? I mean, no family is boring. you know, it would probably be boring to read about a perfect family because no family's perfect, you know. So every single family's got their little secrets, unique dynamics. There's the time when, you know, you all have a Christmas dinner or a family occasion and everyone's there and everyone remembers it differently. Years later, you know, one petty grudge goes through and the other person's like, oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. So all that kind of fun stuff with families and people seeing things differently. And that's a little bit like what happens in this book. There are two siblings, Prue and Ginny, and they see things quite differently. So Prue's pretty relaxed, you know, she's all right with the backpacker. She's a bit worried about her dad. She's kind of, you know, going along with it. But she still lives at home. And Ginny, who doesn't live at home, she's married with her own children, is just furious. And she's saying, who is this guy? You need to find out who he is and what he's doing here and, you know, get the scoop. So they're quite different, but it's quite funny.
Yeah. No, sounds great. And just reminding people who are watching, we've got quite a few people watching, that if you have a question for Liz, please type it in comments. And thanks to Affirm Press, you'll have your chance to win your own copy of The Good Woman's Guide to Making Better Choices. I've got Belinda. She says she's already read it and it's a great story.
Thanks, Belinda.
Belinda also wants to know whether you knew how the story was going to end when you started.
Well, I love that question because I have had a lot of good feedback that people say, wow, it's quite, I've never guessed that ending. And then there are a couple of twists at the end that sort of twists within twists. No, I did not know. I knew broadly, I knew kind of, you know, this woman is married, her husband's sent to jail for fraud, she has to find a way out of it all, she has to cope somehow. What's the journey of coping? Obviously she needs to do interesting things, otherwise it doesn't make a good book. But as I wrote more and more characters and more settings, and I personally love writing with interesting settings. So half of this book is set in northeast Victoria on a goat farm, and it's very vibrant. It brings it to life. So just writing about the richness of that environment then makes you think of all these wonderful things you can do with the characters. And when you're tying up the loose ends, as it were, all of these ideas, ping, 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 they were like, you know, all the synapses were joining, and it's really fun when you get to that point because everything else is perfect and this is all just icing on the cake. So the broad arc, yes, but the in between arcs, no, definitely not.
Yeah, so you're not a big planner?
Well, I'm certainly not a non-stop pantser. For anyone watching who doesn't know what those terms mean, a planner is someone that meticulously plans, like it sounds, and you might be sketching out your characters and you might be sketching out the scenes. Some people go to the point where they're actually writing little synopses for each scene, times 40 scenes, 50 scenes or chapters in a book. I don't do that, but I do an overall outline. So I would say I was planner more than a pantser, and the term pantser comes from flying by the seat of your pants, basically, and many writers are pantsters. One example I happen to know who is pantster is Leanne Moriarty. She just sit down and said, I think her last book, Apples Never Fall, is it Apples Never Fall?
Yeah.
Making TV show of it now, and she just thought, oh, I'll write a book about a family that's involved in tennis. Sat down and started to write it. Oh no, I'm not that.
Yeah.
But it's I think you need a skeleton, you need a sort of structure, because I want to be able to sit down, especially at the beginning. You know, the first book I wrote that I'm going back to edit now, it's far too long. It's about 200,000 words. And again, anyone watching, if you're wondering how long a novel is, the Martin Twist novel, my latest novel that's out, is 88,000 words.
Yeah, so it's a
like
lot. Yeah.
200,000 words is far too much. But it's because I was just writing chapters going, oh, this would be fun. I'll throw in a scene here. Oh, look, there goes a person driving a taxi. Let's have a scene with a taxi driver, and I'm just writing all this stuff, which is pantsy, but of course ended up not being relevant. So I realized, oh no, I need to plan to save my time.
Yeah. And Rachel says she loves reading stories where she knows the suburbs or places. She also says she's loving the front cover of your book. How much input did you have in deciding it?
Honestly, precisely zero. The publisher does it. Yeah, literally no input. And by the way, my publisher has been really quite wonderful. Very, very involved in almost every single other thing, particularly the audio book. There was a lot of interaction with that in terms of spelling out the characters and even selecting the narrator. But the cover design, I had no involvement in whatsoever. And it was quite interesting because, of course, it was very nerve-wracking. So my background is marketing. I must have briefed 5,000 graphic design projects in my life, not book covers, but packaging designs or flyers or whatever else. And so, when you're writing a brief, you've got your objectives, what's the outcome? What do you want the person to think or feel when they're looking at that design? So I had obviously been thinking about it a lot as a marketer. And at one point, if I hadn't been picked up by a traditional publisher, or maybe I'll self-publish, so then I would be doing my own book design. And I thought about it, and I bookmarked these other book covers that I quite liked. And I had, I've got a little sort of favorites folder in my phone. But I didn't have any input at all with this. And so when it came through, I think I just got home from somewhere. It was about 6 o'clock, and I was checking my emails on my phone, and there was the email from the publisher with a PDF attached, and it just said, "Drum roll," in capitals, "Drum roll, cover reveal." I thought, oh. I was so worried that I would hate it. I couldn't look at it, so I basically made my daughter open it on the iPad. I said, I can't look. But then of course I was watching her face, because she, I knew exactly what she would think by the look on her face. And I could see straight away, she said, "Oh, Mum, it's great." And then she turned the screen, and I said, "Ah." Because it's really hard if you don't, because, I mean, what do you do? Like that they don't want the author to hate their own cover design.
Yeah.
And it's hard to back it then if someone says to you in a forum like this, or at a conference, sort of, I really love the cover. What do you think? You don't want to go, like, yeah, I really love it if you really don't.
Yeah.
So it was a relief, to be honest, that I loved it. And then all the other little elements on it, you can see. I don't know if that post is reversed. Is that poster the right way around?
No, it's the right way. We can see. Yeah, that's the.
So you see
all
how
the beautiful flowers and
the flowers. The woman on the swing who's Libby.
And the
then there's
goat.
There's some goat's cheese and a violin, which is significant to the plot, and all these little elements. Because, as I said, I've got a marketing background. What I did was I got the marketing guy to send through the layered files, and I could then take the woman on the swing or take the flowers, and I've done lots of different designs in Canva, and I've incorporated them in my website. So it's been really fun actually doing all of that. I made little cupcakes for my launch. Well, my caterer didn't make them, but I ordered some icing toppers, and they had, like, the goat's cheese topper and a goat and the woman on the swing and the flowers, and yeah, it's a fun design.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. And Kim wonders if you've got a favourite character when you were writing the book.
Who is that, sorry?
Did you have a favourite character when you were writing the book?
I think Rocky is my favourite character.
Mm,
If anyone has read it, you'll know who
mm,
Rocky is,
mm,
otherwise known as Joe. He has two names, which is relevant. He's very fun, kind of.
yeah.
But the older ladies on the farm are also quite fun as well. And of course, Miss Marple. She's Gap.
Yeah, and Liz says, do you find inspiration from people you know, or is it just a random thought or event?
No, it's absolutely both of those things. So anything that happens in my life, you're at the coffee shop or you're listening to something on the radio or you're overhearing a conversation and someone says something and it's just think, that'd be really good if my character says that in that scene I just wrote. Quickly get my phone out and up. And then, obviously it's completely anonymous. It's just in the ether. So yeah, it's not lots of stuff isn't really based on people I know and experience. In general, there might be experiences I've had, but the specifics like the dialogue and the interactions and the things that happen, they're all just inspired by your life, really. That happened during your day in general.
And Rachel's got a good question. She wonders if you did any research, staying or visiting at any goat farms yourself.
Not really. So what happened was I did visit a goat farm once a long time ago. It's sort of in that region actually. And I was with, bless you.
Sorry, I'm sneezing a lot.
And I was with some family friends and we just dropped in. It was like a sort of cellar door thing for goat's cheese.
Oh, okay.
You sort of drop in, you can, we were having a chat and I just thought, oh, this is a really cool little farm. I'd never been to a goat farm before. I absolutely love goat's cheese. And I can't have cow's milk and dairy. I'm not really supposed to have goat's milk either, but it doesn't upset my tummy. So it was lovely to get that jar that day. And I just thought it was a really fun place. So like I said, when I write stories, I like them to be in quirky settings because why not? Stories are about the people, but if you've got a place that's interesting as well, then let's throw it in. So it wasn't extensive research based on somewhere I knew. I'd only been there once. But once I decided, then I just spent the whole time on Google saying what goats do and how do goats interact and what do goats like. And it must have been reasonably authentic because my local bookseller, who has read the book and they've been supporting me with my launch and I've got a library event tomorrow actually at Lane Cove. He said to me, I loved it because I grew up on a goat farm and it was just like childhood. And I said, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would be good to hear. And Rachel, she wonders where the inspiration for the characters' names came from.
Well, I can tell you, Ludo, he's literally just a very old friend that I knocked around with in London years and years ago. Very close friend of a good friend of mine. And I just always thought at the time, God, it's such a cool name. He lives in Australia now, actually, ironically. But Ludo is short for Ludovic. And I always thought, what a cool name for that to be actually your name. And that's not even in. So if I ever write a book, this is 30 years ago, I'm going to call someone Ludo. So that's where Ludo came from. And his family originally was from Eastern Europe. So Ludovic Popovich. And then the other names, the character names, no, you try and make them, obviously they have to be of their generation, because the first time someone reads a name, I mean, anyone's name can be anything, but if I call someone Maureen, you're not going to think that she's the 10-year-old girl.
No, yeah.
So you have to think about the characters' names a little bit and their ethnicity, their age. And then the only other characters, of course, with the fun names were the goats themselves. So they're all named after strong female protagonists, according to according to Dido, who's the goat farmer. So we have Kim Kardashian and Lady Gaga.
Yeah, no, the goats, they were great names for the goats. And I'm interested to know what you like reading yourself. Is there anything you might have read lately you'd like to recommend to us?
Well, I'm reading a book at the moment. Oh, is it called Darcy Tinsdale? The Fall Between, it's called,
Okay.
and that's
I haven't
Aussie.
heard that one before.
Oh, rural noir.
Mm.
Oh my God. Why is anyone outside Australia ever going to come here? Because as far as they're concerned, every single town is full of outback killers. And when you watch it on TV, it's the same, all the Netflix shows. So, you've got to be a bit careful. Like even my book, it's absolutely lovely, fun read, but no, there's no murders in my book. But the Aussie Rural Noir is really massive at the moment, and that's a really good book, actually. So I'm reading that. It's Darcy's debut launch as well.
Okay.
And that's a lot of fun. Otherwise, I'm listening at the moment to Yellowface, if anyone's heard of that. And that's just an eye-opener because it's up in the publishing industry. And bearing in mind I'm brand new in the publishing industry myself, it's quite interesting listening.
And is there anything that surprised you that you didn't know before you had your first novel published?
This sounds so obvious, but before you're published, you feel like you are one person in 5 billion who has got an unpublished manuscript and who's never ever going to get published. And you're in this massive moving sea of other people just like you. And then once you get published, amazing, wonderful, terrific, exciting, celebrate, very, very happy. And then your book comes out, you realize you're in a sea of 5 million other people who've all had books published. And, you walk into a bookshop. So I've been going around quite a lot of Sydney bookshops doing book signings and so on. And of course, I've been into bookshops thousands of times in my life, but never before as a published author.
Yeah.
And when you go in and you're looking through author's eyes as opposed to customer's eyes or reader's eyes, all you can see is the 5,000 other books on the shelf. And you're like, how is anyone going to find mine? So it was a bit of a scary moment, I must say, when I was in Dimmock's in the city and signed some books, and he was lovely. He put them down the front for me.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, like how is anyone, there's a bit of publicity and it's being well received, and anyone that reads it seems to love it. So you just have to hope that the word of mouth takes off. But yeah, you just realize that there's a lot of books out there.
And at least it is a different cover. It stands out. It's nice and bright. So hopefully that attracts people to picking it up and buying it.
So yeah, I hope so. It certainly stands out on a shelf.
And Julia wonders, how long did it take to write this novel? And was it faster than writing your first novel?
Definitely faster. It was more structured. So the first book, like I said, I kind of had a vague idea, but I would just write, this seems lovely, and then this person seems to be fun, so I'll write a scene about them, and then maybe I'll do this part here, and it just took forever, and it was far too long. This one was quicker, maybe a year end to end, still much too long, but that's partly a habit of mine. I kind of overwrite and then I edit back. I find it easier to edit back rather than add to stuff. So I think it was 130,000 words in total, not 200, but still much too long. But it was in better shape more quickly. I had a better idea. I was sort of better at it. I'd had 2 manuscript assessments. I knew I had a better idea of how to structure a book. And the third book that I've written, that I'm also editing at the moment, is in better shape still. So kind of getting better at doing it more quickly as I go. Whereas the first time, you know, I just thought, oh, I'll go. Everyone says your first draft, you just chuck that in the bin, and then you do a second draft, then you do a third draft. And now I'm like, no, I don't really need to be doing 10 drafts. Like, let's just stick to 3 or 4 core drafts, and then you send it to an editor, and it saves everybody time. So yeah, I've just got much better, much more quickly at doing it.
Yeah, and would you say have you got better just from experience, or have you done some courses or read up on something, or?
Yeah, both of those things, absolutely. I mean, I've done so many courses and continue to. Like, I absolutely couldn't have done anything without a lot of the courses that I signed up for the Australian Writers Centre, and a lot of them were face to face. So I did creative writing, and then I did how to write your novel, and they were wonderful. But the short bites courses, as it were, have just been invaluable. So there's a course on structure, there's a course on scenes, there's a course on dialogue, and you know, you can listen to the audio. I'd listen to the audio in the car, and then you can have a look at the slides. You know, you sort of download it and you get to keep the IP, and they're just invaluable. I tell you, I'll get to a bit where I think, oh, I can't figure out what to do with this scene, and then I'll go back to my scenes information, and there's always something there that helps. So absolutely, I'm a constant learner when it comes to writing and trying to make a better book, I suppose.
And what do you hope that readers will love about The Good Woman's Guide to Making Better Choices?
So I really hope that people come away with just a nice feeling, that at the end of it they feel, you know, that there's a smile on their face, and they think, oh, you know, that was a fun read. It was an easy read, which is a compliment, I think, if people say that. Lots of people say, you know, I couldn't put it down. I really always wanted to know what else was going to happen, and I don't think I could ask for a better compliment, because, you know, isn't that lovely to think that you could be anywhere in the world, you know, listen to the audiobook, read it on Kindle, read the paperback, and be transported to a goat farm in rural Victoria or Bondi Beach, and laugh. You know, I've got lots of, obviously, friends in the UK, I'm originally from there, who've downloaded the book or are listening to it, and they're all giving me feedback saying, I absolutely love it. Gosh, it just takes you right to Australia. It's like we live there. It's like we were on Bondi Beach, you know. So I just don't think I could ask anything more than someone saying they, you know, that they were transported. And when you think that the audiobook, I think, is a 8.5-hour read, so I suppose, broadly speaking, if you were to read the book cover to cover yourself, it would be 8 to 9 hours. So someone has given me 8 to 9 hours of their time. They've invested that time and the money that they've parted with to buy the book or download the book. And, you know, at the end of it, I want to be able to reward them. And I think that that's great if that's what people think.
No, that's great. Kim also wonders if you have support from other authors. We've had lots of authors on here before saying how much support they've received, so she just wonders if you've found the same.
Well, look, 100%. I mean, when I started doing this, the first book I wrote, I didn't know anyone. And when I say I didn't know anyone, I mean, I literally did not know a single person. I didn't even have a tenuous, my next door neighbour's mum used to work in publishing, which often people have. I knew nothing. I knew nobody. But I decided I'd write a book, so off I went, ching, 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 ching. And then I decided to get serious about it, and I think my book's good enough, I want to pitch it. And I started to do these courses. And one of the recommendations on the course was network with other authors, meet other people. So okay, so I mean, I'm reasonably friendly. I don't mind going to things by myself, but I didn't know anyone. So I would turn up at writers' festivals. You know, I'm not just talking about the Sydney Writers' Festival, which is quite highbrow anyway, to be honest. I'm talking about sort of the local regional festivals like the Northern Beaches and maybe Story Fest, which is down the south coast. And I just go by myself, and there'd be other authors there, and obviously you queue up and you sign someone's book, you buy someone's book that they're signing, and then you just meet people. And one of the people I met through all of this sort of ether, if you like, was Joanna Nell. So if anyone knows her, she's a very well known author. She's just published her 5th novel, I think, and she's hugely best-selling. And she was so helpful, I can't even tell you. She was just wonderful. And she was, I think, one of the first people to read my first book, my first manuscript. She gave me detailed feedback. She's been cheering me on all the way, and she read this manuscript before it was ever published. So this is someone that's investing all of her personal time in someone that she just met at an event. No one introduced us. It's not like there was she's a friend of a friend, and could you do her a favor? I was literally nobody to her, but she backed me, and she read both my manuscripts. She gave me detailed feedback, and the second manuscript became this book. And I don't know if you can see, but she has endorsed it on the front. And Jo actually did my launch. So as well as Joanna, many other authors, you start to go to events and you meet the other authors, and they introduce you to other authors, and then they all invite you to the book launches. And it's just this big, wonderful community of people supporting people. One of the groups I'm in at the moment, well, I'll be in it for the next forever, I guess, but it's been super wonderful because we are all debut authors this year. So this year being 2024, my book would have been the first one out. It was actually December the 27th, 2023, but it counts as January. And everybody in our group is called the Debut Crew 2024. And we're all, it's like a mother's group for books. we're just zooming in going, what do you do with this? And who's doing podcasts? Did you get a microphone for podcasts? Even talking to you now, Jackie, it's actually annoying me looking at my face because I've got the glare on the glasses, and it's not a particularly good screenshot, even though I spent ages trying to set it up. So after this, it's going to be something I'll be going off to do. It's like I need to set up my recording equipment, and I'll be sharing that with my debut crew. It's just the kind of question that we all ask each other. So, and everyone's different genres. It's really quite lovely. Very, very supportive.
Yeah, no, it's really great to hear stories like that. And I have to say, it seems to be the norm, which is really, really great as well.
It certainly is. And if anyone ever wants to ask me to do anything for them, when I move from fledgling debut to possibly, one rung on the ladder, then I'll be very, very happy to do that, because you've got to start somewhere. Like when I started writing my first book, and when I say started, I mean I hadn't typed a word, I hadn't planned anything, I hadn't done anything. I just decided I was going to write a book. A friend of mine said, "Oh, I know an author in New Zealand called Charity Norman." I don't know if anyone's heard of her.
Yeah, she's actually an associated author of our group.
Is she?
She's great,
well,
Charity.
Honestly, Jackie, again, I'm nobody. I'm a friend of a friend in another country. And we had this very long message exchange. I said to her, I'm thinking of writing a book. I'd been sick, and I was sort of in the long recuperation phase, and I was bored, and I really just didn't know what to do with myself. I'm just sort of looking for something to occupy myself. So I'll write a book. And I've still got printed out and saved in a folder, because I had to sort of screenshot them, the text exchanges. She sent me reams and reams of tips and ideas of just where to start. Look, start with, sketch out your characters. Doesn't have to be detailed. What does he keep in his pocket? What music does he like to listen to? It'll give you an idea of your character, and then you can start to write it. I think the ideal place to start is the beginning. And once you start writing, it'll take on a life of its own. And I still have that saved. And I've never met Charity in person, but one day I really hope to, because it was just wonderful what she did. I really remember, I really respect her for it.
No, I totally agree. She's lovely, Charity. I actually met her a couple of years ago at the Crime Writers, is it the Bad Festival? She came to Sydney.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
My daughter does the PR for Bad.
Oh, okay.
Completely coincidentally.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yes, I'd like to think I brought my children along to the publishing world.
Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. It's been great talking to you today, and want to thank the people who asked questions. We had lots of great questions.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely. And I apologize for the, as I said, not fabulous appearance.
Oh,
but
no,
anyway, what we'll do is we'll work on that. And on my next live Zoom, everybody that's zooming now, I want you to all zoom in so that you can give me feedback and say, oh yeah, Liz fixed up her camera now and she's got the lighting sorted and she doesn't have a shiny face and other stuff. So yeah, all feedback, most welcome of the next one.
Thank you, and bye everyone.